She had never planned to touch a piano that day. In fact, she had promised herself she would only watch, quietly, from a distance, just like she always did. Music had always lived inside her, but life never gave her the space to let it come out. Growing up, she learned early that dreams were things you admired, not things you chased. Especially dreams that looked expensive, complicated, or meant for other people. From a young age, she was drawn to music. Whenever she heard a piano playing on TV, in a hall, or through someone's phone speaker, she stopped whatever she was doing. The sound felt different from everything else. It wasn't loud like drums or flashy like guitars. It felt honest. It felt like someone speaking without words. But owning a piano or taking lessons was never an option. Her family focused on survival, not hobbies. Music stayed in her heart, not in her hands. She practiced in small, hidden ways. Sometimes she tapped rhythms on a table while doing chores. Sometimes she imagined melodies while walking home. She watched piano performances online whenever she could, replaying the same videos again and again. She studied finger movements, posture, expressions. She learned by watching, listening, and feeling. No one around her knew how deeply she loved it. To them, she was just quiet, ordinary, and forgettable. That day, the event was supposed to be simple. A public gathering. A small crowd. Some performances planned by people who clearly belonged on stage. She didn't come to perform. She came because she heard there would be live music. That alone was enough to pull her in. When she entered the hall, her eyes went straight to the piano placed near the center. It was polished, elegant, and clearly meant for trained hands. For a moment, she just stood there, looking at it, feeling both drawn and afraid. People gathered around, chatting casually. Some were confident, dressed neatly, laughing loudly. Others were recording videos, waiting for something impressive. She stood off to the side, unnoticed, like always. As performances ended one by one, the piano remained. There was a short pause, an unplanned gap. Someone joked that anyone could try playing it. Laughter followed. It was meant as a joke, nothing serious. She felt her heart beat faster. The thought crossed her mind before she could stop it. Just one song? Just a few seconds. She immediately pushed the idea away. She knew how it would look. She knew what people would think. She didn't look like a performer. She didn't sound confident. She didn't belong in their eyes. But her feet moved slightly forward on their own. She didn't even realize it at first. It was like something inside her had waited too long and finally refused to stay quiet. As she got closer, a few people noticed. Their conversation slowed. Someone whispered something to another person. A soft laugh came from behind. Not cruel, but not kind either. She stopped. Her hands felt cold. Every old doubt rushed back. All the times she had been underestimated. All the moments she stayed silent when she wanted to speak. She told herself to turn around, to walk back and pretend this thought never happened. No one would remember her. No one would care. But then she thought about how many times she had already walked away. How many chances she had denied herself before anyone else could. This time she stayed. Someone asked, half smiling, if she really wanted to play. The tone wasn't encouraging. It was curious, slightly amused. A few people chuckled quietly. Phones were lifted, not in support, but in expectation of something awkward. She nodded gently, not trusting her voice. As she sat down on the bench, the laughter grew a little louder. Not everyone laughed, but enough did. She heard whispers about how this would be interesting, how this should be quick. Each sound felt heavier than the last. Still, she sat straight. She placed her feet carefully on the floor, just like she had seen so many times before. Her hands hovered above the keys. She didn't touch them yet. In that pause, the room felt too loud. Her mind raced. What if her hands slipped? What if she forgot everything she imagined? What if this ended exactly the way everyone expected? She closed her eyes for a brief second. Not to escape, but to remember. She remembered the nights she listened to piano music through weak speakers. She remembered practicing silently on imaginary keys. She remembered telling herself that one day, even if no one listened, she would play. The laughter didn't stop right away. Someone in the back made a joke. Someone else sighed. But she didn't look up. She focused only on the piano in front of her. The smooth surface. The familiar layout. It felt strange, yet familiar, like meeting someone you've known in dreams. Her fingers slowly lowered, barely touching the keys. Still no sound. The room waited, some impatient, some curious. A few people expected her to give up. A few were ready to laugh again. She took a deep breath. This was the moment. Not the performance yet, but the decision. The decision to stay, even when every sign told her she shouldn't. The decision to risk embarrassment for something that mattered to her. She didn't know how the crowd would react. She didn't know if this would change anything. All she knew was that she was finally where she wanted to be. Her fingers rested fully on the keys. And just before the first note was played, the room was still filled with quiet laughter, doubt, and expectation of failure. The first note finally came. It was soft, almost careful, but it was clear. Clear enough to cut through the small laughs still floating in the room. A few people paused mid-sentence. Someone lowered their phone slightly. The sound didn't demand attention, yet it quietly took it. Her fingers moved again, then again. Slowly, gently, as if she was testing whether the piano would accept her. The melody wasn't loud or dramatic. It was calm, steady, and honest. Within seconds, the laughter faded. Not because someone asked for silence, but because no one felt right interrupting anymore. She didn't rush. She played the way she had always imagined she would if she ever got the chance. Each note felt personal, like a thought finally spoken out loud. The piano responded beautifully, filling the room with a warm sound that felt deeper than expected. Heads began to turn fully toward her. People who had looked away now faced the piano without realizing it. The room changed without warning. Conversations stopped. Phones that were raised for mockery were now held still, recording something unexpected. No one whispered now. No one smiled in doubt. There was only the music, flowing naturally, confidently, as if it had always belonged there. Her posture relaxed as the melody continued. The fear that had tightened her shoulders earlier slowly released its grip. Her breathing matched the rhythm of the song. She wasn't thinking about the crowd anymore. She wasn't thinking about being judged. In that moment, it felt like she was alone with the piano, just like she had been so many times in her imagination. The melody grew stronger. Not faster, not louder, but fuller. It carried emotion that didn't need explanation. Some people felt it without understanding why. Others felt memories rise up suddenly. A few felt something tighten in their chest. It wasn't a perfect performance in a technical sense, but it was real, and that was enough. Someone in the front row leaned forward slightly. Another person gently placed a hand over their mouth, surprised by how moved they felt. A few eyes softened. A few blinked more than usual. The silence in the room became complete, not forced, but shared. She reached a part of the piece that felt heavy with emotion. Her hands trembled for just a second, not from fear, but from feeling too much at once. She adjusted, kept going, trusting herself. The piano didn't judge her hesitation. It followed her lead, letting the music breathe. Time felt strange then. Seconds passed, but no one noticed. The crowd wasn't waiting for her to finish anymore. They were inside the moment with her. Every earlier doubt felt distant, almost embarrassing now. The same people who had laughed earlier sat completely still. As the final notes approached, she softened her touch. The melody slowed like a story coming gently to an end. Her fingers pressed the last chord and held it just long enough to let it settle into the room. The sound faded naturally, leaving behind a silence that felt different from before. No one moved. That silence wasn't awkward. It wasn't empty. It was full. Full of respect, surprise, and something close to admiration. She lifted her hands from the keys slowly, unsure of what would come next. For a brief moment, she thought maybe the room had frozen. Then someone clapped. Just one person at first. Then another, and another. Within seconds, the entire room was filled with applause. Not polite applause, not forced applause, real, strong applause. Some people stood up without planning to. Others nodded, still processing what they had just experienced. She remained seated for a moment, unsure if this was truly for her. When she finally stood, the applause grew louder. She didn't smile widely or bow deeply. She simply stood there, a little overwhelmed, a little unsure, but present. As she stepped away from the piano, people looked at her differently. The same eyes that had once doubted her now held respect. A few people approached her quietly, offering simple words. "That was beautiful. I didn't expect that. Thank you." She nodded politely, still finding it hard to believe what had just happened. She didn't feel suddenly powerful or famous. She felt calm, lighter than before, like she had finally let go of something heavy she had been carrying for years. As the event continued, people talked about her performance. Not loudly, not dramatically, but sincerely. Some wondered where she had learned to play. Some asked if she performed often. She answered honestly, saying she hadn't had many chances. That answer surprised people even more. Later, when she stepped outside, the air felt cooler, quieter. She took a deep breath and looked up for a moment. Nothing about the world had changed, yet everything felt different. She hadn't proven anything to others as much as she had proven something to herself. She thought about how close she had come to walking away, how easily this moment could have never happened, all because of fear or laughter or the fear of being seen. That thought stayed with her longer than the applause did. She didn't suddenly believe that life would become easy. She didn't think every door would open from that day on. But something inside her shifted. She understood now that waiting for permission had only kept her hidden. And sometimes, silence only breaks when someone is brave enough to make the first sound. The story didn't spread across the world. It didn't go viral overnight. But it stayed with the people who were there. And it stayed with her even more. Whenever doubt returned, she remembered the sound of that room going quiet. Not because she demanded attention, but because she earned it by being real. From that day forward, she allowed herself to try more often. Not just with music, but with life. She spoke when she wanted to speak. She stepped forward when she felt the pull, even when fear whispered that she didn't belong. That piano performance didn't change who she was. It revealed who she had always been. And for the people who laughed before she played, that silence taught them something too. That talent doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it sits quietly in the corner, waiting for a moment of courage. The room fell silent that day, but the impact of that moment stayed loud in many hearts long after the music ended.